Good morning from the West Coast and good afternoon to those of you everywhere else. And thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of FranCoach's Franchising 101 webinar series. Today's edition is going to discuss one of the biggest, if not probably the biggest concern people have when they consider franchise ownership. And that is, of course, money. Money, money, money. How much do I need? How can I get some? How much can I make? Today's guest is an expert in franchise funding, and he's going to help us understand how much we need, what funding options are going to be available for us. Steve Nielsen is the Senior Financing Consultant with Guidant Financial, which is the premier franchising funding company in the U.S. Steve, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, same here. We got a ton of stuff to get to, and we've got a whole host of questions we want to ask you about funding and certainly about Guidant Financial. We do want to let everyone that's joining us today, they can submit questions as well using the chat feature. Time permitting, we'll knock those out at the end of the webinar. We definitely want to hear all about Guidant Financial and how they can help you in funding that you need to own a franchise. But first, we want to make sure everybody's aware of what the heck we do. So shameless plug time for FranCoach. So FranCoach is a national search firm. We're dedicated to working with individuals who are interested in owning a franchise. Our role is to help you build out your perfect business model and owner role to go along with your skills, desired lifestyle, and goals. Then we're going to do all the research to find the best potential match from over 500 franchisors in nearly 60 industries that we are partnered with. We're then going to connect you to the leadership team of those brands and help you throughout the entire process. Two very simple goals on our process. Number one is to educate clients to determine if this is even the right path. Franchise ownership may not be for you, and that's okay. But if it is, goal number two is to find the best franchise for you to own. And believe it or not, that's the easy part. It's what we do. And best of all, there is never, ever any fee for our service. So shameless plug is now over. Steve, tell us, we want to hear all about Guidant Financial, but I'm going to lob one in, man. I want a very simple yes or no question from you or for you. We hear some version of this from pretty much everybody we talk to, right? And it's very simple. Man, I would love to own a franchise, but I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars laying around, much less millions.
Sure.
Can you help? Is it possible? What do you think? What do you think to that? Is that something that's possible, or do we absolutely have to have 7 figures laying around?
Yeah, definitely don't need to have 7 figures laying around. That's the good news here. There are multiple different funding options that could be, based on somebody's credit alone. So somebody with good credit could potentially get funding, all the way to using retirement funds to fund a business, and really everything in between. On top of that, franchises really do vary in cost. And I should ask there on that. Do you have an idea of what kind of your average is for someone purchasing a franchise, or kind of what the lowest and highest amounts are all in to purchase a franchise?
Yeah, good question. No, it's such a wide range. I mean, we've worked with folks, we've been doing this for about 5 years now, and we've worked with folks that have, it's taken as little as $40,000 to $50,000 to start their franchise. And then we worked with people that have, invested several $1 million, and everywhere in between. It was kind of equated to buying a house, right? We don't all start out with that mega mansion on top of the mountain. I'm sure you did, right? But not everybody. And sometimes it's starting a little bit small, but there's almost always options out there, and that's what we're glad we have you here today. So yeah, definitely want to talk about some of the options, but tell us just a little bit about Guidant Financial. Who are you guys? What do you do? How long have you been around?
Yeah, so Guidant's been around since 2003. We're a full suite financing company, and we specialize in franchising. They're about 60% of the businesses we fund. We can also help with startups and acquisitions as well, but franchising really is kind of our bread and butter. Myself, I actually started here when we first opened up in 2003. At the time, we had about 3 employees, so a pretty small firm. But we had a vision and a goal. Fast forward to now, we have about 150 employees. We're split between Seattle and Boise. We now have offices actually over in Vietnam and the Philippines as well. And we funded about 20,000 businesses across the country, done almost $5 billion in total funding. And the one thing we're really proud of is our clients have actually gone on to employ over 80,000 workers across the US. But the way we work is really just educating people on what's out there, consulting them on those options, making sure they're comfortable with what they could do, breaking it down as clear as possible, so they can be empowered to make the right decision for them to fund their business.
Awesome. And so there's a handful of different options out there. One of them that I think most people don't realize is an option. We hear the term ROBS. What in the world is ROBS? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is one of our more popular options out there. And yet it still has some needed market penetration. So I'd say probably about half the people I talk to have at least heard of it. The basic idea is that you're taking your retirement funds and turning them into an investor in your business. So if you wanted to buy stock today in, let's say, Microsoft, and what's happening is you're quite literally purchasing stock from another person, but the funds that you use to purchase it does go to Microsoft, and they can actually spend those funds to grow their business. In exchange, your funds continue to grow so that when you sell that stock, you get a return on your investment. What we're doing is the same basic idea, but instead we're doing it for a private corporation that's owned and run by our clients. The basic structure is as follows, and then I'll get a little more in depth here. What we do is we first set up a new corporation, and this does have to be a C corporation. The reason being is the type of stock we're using is just not available in LLCs or S Corps. Once we've established that new corporation, we then create a 401k plan as part of it. And you can see here on the left and in the middle, you have that corp and 401k. But if we stopped here, there really wouldn't be anything unique about someone's company. Where things change is we'll actually have them take their existing retirement assets. This could be an IRA, a TSP, 401k, etc. Whatever amount they want to use, they roll over to this newly created 401k plan. And Tim, if you switch the slide, I think it would, there we go. But instead of investing this then into stocks and bonds like you usually would in the publicly traded markets, this is where things change. We'll actually have your own corporation issue shares of stock. Your 401k will purchase those shares, so it's effectively becoming an investor, and the cash will then go to a corporate checking account. Because it was first rolled over, it's not taxed or penalized at that point. You then purchase stock in your business, so you're not withdrawing it from the account. So at no point are you taxed or penalized, and those funds are available in a corporate checking account for any business purposes. What's really powerful about the structure, though, is it not only can fund a business debt-free, it can be used as a down payment for an SBA loan or other type of debt, but your retirement funds will continue to grow with the growth of your business. So if you think of them like a silent partner or an angel investor in the business, they're giving you the seed capital to spend and grow your business. And in exchange, when you sell that company down the road, there will actually be a tax-deferred return that goes back into retirement. So as you can see here, the first bullet point says it gives you control of your retirement plan's performance. To just be a little more clear on that, let's say somebody used $100,000 to buy a franchise, and they used just retirement funds, and that was it. If they sold that franchise, 10 years down the road for, let's say, $500,000, at the sale, $500,000 would go back into retirement, tax deferred. All the while, they can run the business and pay themselves a salary, bonuses and commission. So it is both a short-term investment running the business, but also a long-term tax-deferred investment back to retirement. The second thing is this, as mentioned previously, can be used to purchase a business either outright or with equity. So if you didn't want any debt inside the business, you could just use retirement funds. Or let's say you wanted to get a loan but didn't have enough for a down payment, you could use the retirement funds for that down payment to then secure an SBA loan. And one last thing that's just, I think, just an added benefit here is it does create a 401k plan for the business. So if there are employees, they'd have the opportunity to defer a portion of their own paycheck into their own account. Their funds would then be invested in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, just like normal It's okay if the owner of the business wants to offer a match, but it's not required. It's totally going to be up to each individual business to determine how to best utilize that. But again, there's no additional cost for this. It's just an added benefit for employees.
Steve, thanks for that. And we'll tell you, from a good portion of the folks that we talked to at the beginning just don't even know that this is out there. But it really, from our standpoint, to be able to start a business that's debt free, basically, essentially using your own money and reinvesting it in yourself and your new business versus trusting the market. It's just a fantastic way. And even how you explain that at the end, right, is you sell it, which is really the main exit strategy long term, right? When you have that franchise, you run that for as long as you want, and either pass it on to some family. I mean, they could give it to me and you if they wanted, but that's usually not the choice people are going to make, right? It goes to family, or it gets sold, and that's the way you explain that. I think a lot of times when people come back to us after we've kind of sent them over to you, are really, I think, kind of taken back by the fact that it's essentially reinvest their own money in themselves. People are going to trust themselves and that franchise they're going to start, and then essentially, double, triple, quadruple, whatever that might be down the road with the seller.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and actually, as a aside here, we have one client who, when they opened their business, they took about $400,000 from retirement to get it up and running. The bet was quite literally on themselves, and they were just doing a distillery. That business, fast forward 10 years, is now worth $4.5 million. So if they were to sell that today, that would all go tax deferred back into retirement. So that's the idea. Both help people grow their retirement funds, fund a business, and run it. And
it's a great benefit too. Also, if an owner so chooses to again, essentially act as a major corporation, right, and allow their employees to start funding for their retirement as well. Now, one thing that we'll hear, a lot of folks we work with have been very successful in the corporate world, and they are used to that salary, right? That paycheck every 2 weeks. Now, they're only used to it until the company doesn't need them anymore, which is usually a big reason why they're talking to us. But talk to, right? You touched very briefly on, an owner can compensate themselves. How does that work?
Yeah, so it's actually required with this structure that the owner take some form of compensation from the business. The reason being is they have to be first and foremost an active employee of the actual corporation. What that means is this is not great for passive investments where you're going to set it and forget it. It's really if you want to have your hands on the business, you're working at it, and you're trying to grow it. Because you have to be an active employee, it's required that there is some sort of fair and reasonable compensation that you're paying yourself. And that can start on day one when you open your doors, or it could be after you've started generating some revenue and profit, or could even defer it. So it's pretty flexible in how it's set up, but it allows people to fund a franchise, but also pay themselves for a period of time while they're getting that business up and running, which I think is just so important for a lot of people coming from the corporate world.
Yeah, it's even if it's just a little bit of a security blanket, right? And so that's fantastic. So, what if somebody maybe doesn't have a whole bunch in any sort of a retirement plan, right? What are there some loan options that are out there that we could take a look at for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. The one that probably has the most name recognition is the Small Business Administration Loan, or SBA loan, as it's referred to. The way these work is these are bank loans. The government is involved, but the government's essentially providing a guarantee to the banks. And what that means is if somebody was to borrow $100,000 and I don't know, they took that money and they fled to another country and decided to live out, I guess I wouldn't give them a full life, but a good amount of time in luxury, the bank would actually get $85,000 back from the government. So it's an interesting program because the goal is to incentivize banks to give out loans that they otherwise would not, and it's done by taking away some of their risk. That all being said, banks still have to really follow the guidelines set by the SBA, and what they're always worried about is potentially losing out on the guarantee because they funded somebody that they shouldn't have. The way you know if you're somebody that should have been funded is going to be based on these 5 C's you see here on the screen. Capital, credit, capacity, character, and collateral, which we'll go over individually. Before I do, though, I should note that the interest rates on these loans right now are about 8% on a 10-year term. It can be less than that, but I haven't really seen it less than about 7% in the last few years. It can be a fixed rate or a variable rate. And some of these details would always be good for us to connect individually on and talk through. But for just kind of sake of this example, assume about a 7 to 8% rate on a 10-year term. To break down individually what's required, the first thing you can see on a new startup or franchise business is typically a 30% equity injection. Now, I'll talk about caveats or exceptions to this, but what that means is if you needed $100,000, you'd typically want to put in 30 grand of your own funds into the business. The loan would then be for 70,000. So once you've spent that 30 grand in the business, they would release those funds. With an acquisition or an existing business, you're looking at closer to 20% down in most cases. They'll also look for good credit. Usually that's going to be a 680 or above. If you're above a 720, that's considered excellent. But I do want to note that your credit score, if it's above 680, it's sort of like a pass-fail. If you're above there, you're going to get the loan, or you can get the loan, but you're not going to see lower rates the higher your credit score. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. They'll also look at your capacity, also known as your cash flow. That is, how much money do you have coming in every month? How much do you have going out? And how much just cash on hand do you have for emergencies in your own finances? Ideally, every bank would love to see that you have a spouse who's employed and covering your household bills, or that you're keeping your job as you're getting the business up and running, but it usually doesn't work that way. And I do want to be clear that if you don't have outside income, you can still get an SBA loan. They're going to look, though, at how much cash on hand or how much capital you have available to you. Alternatively, if you wanted to use the rollover as part of this, the rollover is business startup option, that can also increase your total strength by giving you additional cash reserves. The last couple things are pretty straightforward. They look at your character. So they want to make sure you have some relatable experience. And if you've been in the corporate world, you definitely have that. The last thing is typically collateral. This is in the form of a lien on property in most instances. This is going to be required on every SBA loan over $350,000. If you're under that, though, I'll say 50-50. It just depends on the situation. Sometimes we can do this without even needing any collateral whatsoever. Now, there's one exception to all of these rules that I do want to talk about. It's called or at least in the franchise industry, it's called the SBA Express loan. That is an option where you can put down as little as 10% on a business, get up to $150,000 without needing any collateral. All they really are looking for is, do you have good credit? Do you have a spouse who's employed, or do you have some income coming in? And if you do, there's a good chance that you would qualify for that option as well.
Wow. Okay, great. Hey, so tons of things there with that. And one thing that comes up a lot is you talked about kind of that direct experience. And hey, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we hear this a lot. And as you know, people come out of the corporate world, and a lot of times they've been in the same industry their whole career. And typically that usually is because the first job they got out of college was in that industry, and then they just kept rolling with it, right? And so changing jobs in the or changing industries in the corporate world can be a real struggle, right? It's like you'll hear the kind of the insane, oh, well, you don't have any industry experience, even though you have all the talent, right? But part of the loan with the franchise is that the banks and the government trust the franchise, right?
Yes.
And your skill set is leadership, management, sales, operation, not so much, well, it's the old McDonald's thing, right? You don't have to have 20 years experience flipping a burger to own McDonald's. You can be a complete slob and own a cleaning franchise,
Yeah.
right? Is that really kind of what you're talking about when that direct experience is true talent and skill set, and then the bank is really looking at the success of the franchisor?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, what's really nice about franchising is it doesn't require direct experience, as you can see here. It's about relatable experience. So you mentioned this, but every franchise out there that wants to allow their candidates to get SBA loans has to go through a process with the Small Business Administration to get their franchise pre-approved. The vast majority of franchises are SBA pre-approved, which makes it significantly simpler. And then all they care about is, hey, have you worked in the corporate world? What's your experience, and how will that work with the franchise you're going into? So coming back to your cleaning example of somebody who's just naturally messy, that would work just fine. The question is, are they good, as you mentioned, at leadership? Are they good at marketing? Are they good at sales and development or operations? And all of that would be considered relatable experience that could be used even if they've never been in the cleaning industry before. So it's one of the biggest benefits of going with a franchise is the fact that people just need to have experience working in the corporate world rather than needing to have direct industry experience in the business they're looking at.
Absolutely. And so you talked a lot about the SBA, but then you mentioned the Express loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that again comes up a lot with folks we talk with is kind of trying to get a grasp of that entry point, right? And because I think there's a perception sometimes that, like we talked about, you really need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars or more to start a franchise, right? Now, again, if you want five Taco Bells, yeah, you are going to need that. But the vast majority of people we work with are in franchises that are significantly less than that. And a good portion of the ones we work with, and I'd say probably at least 100 and probably closer to 150, could fit in what you just described with that Express loan, right? So what I hear with that is, maybe we're looking at now, instead of needing, $50,000 to $100,000 liquidity, maybe now we're looking at 10, 15, 20,000, some of which could be from cash already on hand, could be from as a rollover in addition. Is that accurate? Is there really things that we could look at for folks that's all the more cash they need?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, about 2 years ago, I had a company, which I just found online, come and do a home inspection here at our house. About 10 minutes in the conversation, I realized that they had been a franchise. So I decided they were a franchise. So I decided I wanted to get some more information. I ended up looking them up. The cost to get into that franchise was around $75,000. So much lower than expected. And that would have been a perfect fit had I had a chance to speak to them beforehand for this SBA Express loan. Because they could have put in as little as $7,500 down on the business, gotten the rest through an SBA loan. They wouldn't have needed collateral on their house, and they wouldn't have needed $1 million, as you had mentioned. They just need enough to come up with a down payment, maybe 10 to 20 grand of cash reserves. In the event, though, they couldn't have qualified through an SBA loan, there's still other options out there. I won't go in depth on these today, but there's things like home equity lines of credit. There are unsecured and term loans, which are totally based on your credit. So there are multiple ways to attack this to make sure you can come up with the funding needed. And almost everyone I talk to is in a position to fund a franchise that's under $150,000, or at least get there within a very reasonable amount of time.
Awesome. And you just kind of mentioned a handful of other things. I feel like we've just barely scratched the surface, and I realize we're coming up on the bottom of the hour, and need to hop off of this. Maybe really quickly, Steve, for when you think of the ROBS or the loan option, why should someone use Guidant? Can't they just, figure out how to do the rollover and start a C Corp and do all that stuff themselves? Or go to the local bank and go, hey, give me an SBA loan? Why Guidant?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and it's sort of like, why why buy a house if you can build it yourself? There are people that would want to do it all 100% themselves, percent by themselves, and that's fine. But we've really made it turnkey here. So the first thing is we get this whole structure set up within about 3 weeks. On top of that, we do include outside attorney time to make sure people are getting a legal representative as part of this. Um, we already have all of the contacts at the IRS and Department of Labor. They've approved the 401k plan that we set up. And you're going to have our backing as a company ongoing. So that specific structure, out of our all of our clients, we've had around 15,000 that have used the rollover structure. We offer audit protection, and out of those 15,000, less than 1% have actually been audited, but the ones who were, we defend them in court at our cost, and we have never lost an audit because of that. So you're not only going to get the service and support, you're going to have a lot more protection by working with us. And the last thing is, when I have had people go out and try to do this by themselves, they find it's usually significantly more expensive to set up, anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000, which is well outside of a range that the average person can do.
And let's be honest, just the amount of time they're going to spend to try to figure out every step of the way that you guys have been perfecting for 15, 16 years,
yeah.
Right? It is, but I just, again, it's most people don't know there are services like FranCoach to help with the search to find the best franchise. Most people don't know there is Guidant Financial that can actually now find you the best possible funding options to kind of make that dream a reality. So
really appreciate you bringing me on today so we could talk through this and start getting some more knowledge out there for people.
Yeah, and we clearly need to do part 2 very soon, because I know there's more we need to talk about with this, and then certainly also dig into some of those other funding options. But Steve, man, thanks so much for joining us today, and hopefully this will help enlighten those interested in franchise ownership to realize this is possible and there's some options out there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a good day, and thanks everyone for attending.
Yeah, no, and if you'd like to learn anything more about funding options we discussed today, or you want to begin the search for your perfect franchise, let's schedule a brief introductory call. Here's how, right in front of you. Go old school, pick up the phone, 480-501-1354. You can email our team at info@francoach.net. Feel free to follow us online. That whole social media thing, I guess, wasn't a fad. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I think the cool kids call it IG, Twitter. If you still have a MySpace, man, tell us. We'll get one. We'll connect with you there. Follow us for all the latest information. But if you have any interest or curiosity in how to make this happen, take that first step today. Reach out to us and help create your better tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks, and have a great day.